In regards to insurance, I've always been one that made sure I did have good insurance, and I was also very proactive as far as my health. I started getting physicals every year at 35 because I was playing sports. I always figured to myself that if you went to your doctor and you got a physical, if something was wrong, they would catch it and be able to nip it in the bud.
You had mentioned that with your current situation, it's $1,120 a month.
Yes.
Can you afford that?
No, not really. You know, I'm not working right now, per se, because the treatments take too much out of me. I've already gone through my 401k money. I've taken that out and spent that on my mother and stuff and different bills. I've actually talked to my mortgage company, and they've agreed to hold off on payments until February. But then I'll have a year to make up the 6 months that I'm not paying right now. Of my mortgage payment is about $1,500 a month. So I'll have to make up that $1,500 over the $9,000, 6 months times the 15, over the next year when I start working, hopefully when I start working again back in February. The hospital has been very helpful. At one point they said, Keith, it may not even make sense for you to get insurance in the high-risk pool and pay the $1,120 a month because it's a lot of money, you know. But I explained to them that I needed to keep insurance, so when I get better, I'll be able to get insurance. I'll have the continuation, because that's a big thing in getting insurance. You need continuation of medical insurance, or else you get thrown into these high-risk pools, even though, you know, mine's a little more complicated than that because I'm not part of a group plan. But getting back to the other part, so I decided I would get insurance to pay for all the other outside, because Concord Hospital then said, okay, if you get insurance, we will pick up your deductible and the 20% that their plan won't pay. And that's been, I mean, that can be thousands upon thousands of dollars. This whole thing is going to cost $150,000, $200,000 by the time it's settled.
Yeah. Did you find, Keith, that your insurance was comprehensive enough to let you stay with the same doctors during the whole way through? Or did you find that you had to switch around because you were switching coverage? As
soon as I knew that I had to switch to this First Health plan, I called up all my regular doctors. Also, I called up Concord Hospital and asked them if they accepted this plan, and they did. So I knew enough to check to make sure whatever insurance I was going to be getting, it was going to actually pay for the doctors that I was going to have working on me. So, but you can't, when you have medical problems, a lot of people think it's just a doctor and the hospital, but that is not the case. There's so many other outside groups that you get bills from. You get it from the imaging people, you get it from the CAT scans, the radiologists who read, all the drugs that you could have 2 or 3 different drug companies charging you. You know, it's not the drug, it's the labs. The 2 or 3 different labs that are doing the test, and then you have the radiologists who are reading the test, or the different types of doctors. So it isn't just straight doctor hospital. There's many other bills that come in. So you really don't know. You could have 5 different doctors or bills for one treatment that you had, and you don't even know who the other 4 are. But they touch base and they submit a bill, and you don't know for sure if they will accept your insurance until they actually submit. I mean, I look at this, my whole situation, and I have to rely on myself, my physical ability to try to rise to the occasion, you know. it's scary. It's scary, you know. And I've always done everything myself. And it was hard even asking my friends, you know, to like mow and, you know, and lift things. And I mean, it's simple. I kept hurting my stomach in the beginning. I was trying to clean the pool, and finally, after about like 4 weeks of doing that, I just said, you know, Keith, you got to stop. You know, you can't be bending and you know, for me, that it's like I jump out of the seat, you know. But you know, I'm gonna make it through this. You know, I'm gonna make it through. You know, and it's seldom that I dwell on it because you can only do one thing at a time. You really can. You know, it's the way I look at it. And right now, I just need to get to my treatments every day, take my medicine, you know, get to it, and not worry about, in a way, you know, what can happen. I just have to believe that this is all going to work out.
Well, let me ask you, food bills and general living expenses, how are you meeting all of that? Have the medical bills impacted that situation at all?
Well, I'm broke right now, actually. So I'm living on borrowed money. I have a lot of equity in my house, but it's a terrible time to try to sell a house. I wouldn't try to sell it right now. It'd be ridiculous because I wouldn't get anywhere near what it's worth. People should have insurance. I mean, in most cases, and it's what I always firmly believe, that if you got your physicals, you could nip things in the bud. As it turned out for me, it didn't work that way. It came out of nowhere. But most times it doesn't happen that way. People are either out of shape, which I've only been once, I think, in my life. I was always proactive on that. But they can catch things before it becomes huge surgeries. And if people had that medical insurance, we'd be better off.
What about your future? You're a fighter. You want to make it through this. So you've gone through retirement savings, and also you're using your credit cards basically
Yes.
for day-to-day living. What about the future? Have you thought about how your current situation impacts your future situation?
Well, I hope to be capable of working full-time, and I'm going to try to get a job with a company again just because of medical insurance. I could continue to freelance myself, but I'll have to pay the exorbitant rates for insurance. And that's a lot of money. If I have to pay $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a year, that's a lot of money you got to make just to pay your medical insurance. You can't worry about it. You can't. If you worry about it, you know, you look at statistics, they're so lousy, you don't even want to read them. You know, you just have to believe and take one day at a time and hope everything's going to be okay. You know, if it isn't, you cross that road when you come to it. But you know, talking now, you know, sometimes when you really think seriously, you know, you have the doubts, the fears. But most of the time, it's, you know, I'm going to go down that hill, I'm going to look at my blueberries, I'm going to watch the deer around here, I'm going to be hiking again. Even if none of this works, I'm going to be out hiking again, you know, and I'll gut it out, you know, because I like doing that, you know, I like doing that.